Welcome to episode 17 of Views from a Business Leader. In this episode, we talk to Ed Butler, who is the CEO of Amito. Brilliant. Well, good morning, Ed, and welcome to Views from a Business Leader. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good. So just for the viewers' perspective, can you sort of just say who you are and what you do at Amito, please?
Sure. So I'm Ed Butler. I'm the CEO. What Amito does is provide digital infrastructure, and I'm sure your viewers have heard about the cloud, but what is behind the cloud is physical assets, and those physical assets are things like servers, networking, data centers. So we own a data center in Reading, and it's full of servers, and anything that you do online is using a number of data centers to make that happen. Whether it's watching a video, whether it's buying something from an online shop, sending an email, playing a game, all of these things rely on data centers and digital infrastructure to make that happen.
Very good. So, what type of clients do you work with, Ed?
So our clients tend to fall into two categories. So smaller enterprises, so up to about 500 staff, okay. And then SMEs, so typically 10 to 100 staff, where they've got a technical nature to their business, and so they've got demanding digital infrastructure requirements.
Okay, so I guess we're sort of 12, 13 weeks into sort of the whole sort of lockdown and how when the business sort of coped with it. How's it been affected in terms of from your revenue perspective to actual your infrastructure? How has it affected your business?
So it's been quite interesting, really. When the kind of lockdown was announced, we were quite well prepared. We'd sort of seen from taking a view from around early March that this was on the horizon, and it was all but certain that there was going to be some kind of likelihood, some kind of lockdown happening. Yeah. So from that point, we kind of involved all of the senior team. We took action really quickly, made sure that everyone had the stuff that they needed to be able to work from home, so things like laptops, VPNs, etc. We're fortunate that we're a technical business, so we've got we can use our own resources to our own personnel to make these things things happen, and then actually the kind of communications to staff and outlining plans, what to expect. And interestingly enough, I was looking through the first email that I sort of sent to all of our staff about this, and I said, it's likely to be 12 weeks or more. So we're kind of at the
12 weeks or more point.
we're exactly. We are almost at that point.
Yeah. And do you have a big team? How big is the sort of team within the business?
Yeah, we've got sort of between 30 and 40 staff in the business, so we've got a reasonable sized team, and because it's very easy to sort of think about a digital infrastructure business being all kind of fluffy and you can't touch it, but as I said at the beginning, that there are physical assets behind this. So we do have a number of staff who sort of go around the physical building, have to plug cables in, press buttons, things like that. So obviously they've continued to be in the data center, and it's they're kind of one of the categories of key workers that the government has identified as telecoms and sort of digital infrastructure. So we've something that we did was we set up a different rota system so that that we wouldn't have all the staff interacting with each other in person, so that if someone, if one rota did have to self-isolate, we'd be able to, it wouldn't be sort of catastrophic, if you like, for the service delivery.
Right. Very good. And so How have your, like, from your own sort of business, and I guess your clients need that digital infrastructure. So from your own perspective, revenues have stayed and, relatively even and level, or has there been
Yeah.
a influx?
So I think this is probably something that I've found quite interesting, and because digital infrastructure is such an important part of our lives, it's part of so many different businesses. So we sort of see a snapshot of the economy, and our clients are kind of quite varied. So some clients have done. It's been absolutely crazy for them in terms of how much more business they've got from from the lockdown. So you can imagine anyone can providing a tool that helps working from home. So things like video conferencing has had a big increase in demand. We've also seen online gaming increase quite a bit. So we've got an interview with one of our clients, Nitrado, that's either being published or just about to be published on our website. Right. They've sort of seen a big kind of increase in demand. So what we saw really sort of late March, early April was a huge, a certain sort of subset of our customers had a huge kind of increase in demand, and we were working very, very hard to ramp up infrastructure for them as quickly as possible.
What sort of percentages are we talking, Ed? Are we talking like, almost double the amount? Are we talking sort of 30%, 20%?
Significantly more than that. I mean, I think probably the greatest relative increase would be a client who provides working from home tools, and they're using about 10 times more infrastructure now than they were, say, 4 months ago.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So pretty big.
And so it's obviously, it's been really good to be able to help those help those businesses and help them kind of respond to this the current state that we find ourselves in. But as I as I was saying, we see a snapshot of the economy. So we also see some businesses that are having quite a tough time. So we've got clients, and the businesses that they serve are in the retail and leisure sector. So we've got some clients that provide software as a service, for example, for gyms and leisure centres and swimming pools, and all of their customers are saying, look, we need to cancel our subscriptions, we need to turn the service off, and so they're sort of, they're in a completely opposite position to the first group that I gave, and so we've been sort of helping them by sort of scaling back the resources that they've got.
Yeah, so you've got companies scaling up, companies scaling down. I guess it's just having that flexible solution to offer them that sort of service, that type of service.
And I think in aggregate we've seen an increase in demand. So there are different stories within that, but overall there's more. Every kind of metric we look at, whether it's kind of power used by the data center, the amount of cooling that we're having to put in, the amount of network bandwidth that's being used, all of those metrics are significantly higher now than they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, sure. So with regards to your own office environment, you mentioned, like, obviously your tech industry, tech company, and a lot of people are sort of working from home, I'm guessing. And is what's the office looking like at the moment? Have you been in at all, or?
Yeah, so I've been in somewhere between once a week and once every 2 weeks. There's sort of certain things that you simply just can't do from home. But the majority of our staff have been kind of working from home. I think we've sort of handled the situation reasonably well. But I'd say I'm moderately to highly concerned about the long-term impact. So we've done things like so there's been big increase in video conferencing. So we use Microsoft Teams, but there's obviously other platforms are available, and we've been trying to kind of maintain a good cadence of doing team activities. So I think everyone's done at least 3 quizzes during lockdown. But then we've also done some stuff like online gaming. There's an online escape room that we did as well, and we've created a Strava club, so people can do their kind of cycling and running, and then sort of share times and routes with each other online. So we've been kind of doing stuff like that, and probably sort of finding that there's more conversations happening with people about how they're handling sort of the day-to-day challenges, and it's kind of quite often it's stuff that you wouldn't normally think too much about, like school and this online school, and we've been sort of thinking about how sometimes you get tensions in a team, and they quite often get resolved over water cooler conversations, but those aren't really happening anymore. So how do we kind of manage that effectively? And I think kind of probably the big concern that I have is I've seen lots of people sort of say, oh, this is a start of a paradigm shift, and everyone's going to be working from home in the future, and I don't really think that that's what's happening, and what will happen, and I think that people really need face-to-face contact, and more so than just Teams or a Zoom call, and I feel that we've kind of been okay, and I think probably the same is true for lots of other businesses, because of the if you like, the equity that we've built up in those relationships prior to lockdown starting. And during lockdown, that's gradually been eroded away, and I think it's pretty important that we get people back into the office and kind of build those relationships up in the future. So as soon as it's safe for us to do that, and the government kind of okays it, we're really keen to do that, and it's just because of the quality of relationship.
Yeah, I think there's mixed opinions, I think, in terms of getting back to work, in terms of just the guidance and understanding where from an owner of a business how they're covered in terms of firstly the rules and regs that they need to put into place, and the processes with hand sanitisation and the social distancing, because again, in an office environment, if you're in a shared office environment, about sharing toilets and all the sort of things that you don't tend to think about generally, they need to be addressed. And are you set up okay with the whole sort of social distancing at work? Will you be okay with that?
Yeah, so we've been we haven't kind of implemented a sort of return to work yet, because the government guidance isn't advising that, but there is guidance that's been published about practical measures that you can take to reduce the risks. So that's something that we've been following and been kind of implementing gradually, so that as soon as the green light happens, we already know exactly what we're already doing the right things, and and we can get people returning to work, and probably it's probably something that's going to happen in a phased approach. So we might kind of rotate people around a little bit, just to kind of keep the density in the office lower than normal.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned earlier about sort of equity in relationships and that sort of thing, and you're talking about your staff there. In terms of your relationships externally, how important have those type of relationships been with suppliers, partners during this time?
Yeah, so that's been a little bit different. I suppose with a lot of our supplier relationships, we don't tend to have daily interactions in person like we do with our with the rest of our team in the office. So it's probably less of a less of a change there, and it is that's also true for true for customers, which is the bulk of the communication and contact tends to be email, phone calls, etc. Whereas for our team, the bulk of the contact tends to be in person. I'm talking about what life is like at the beginning of the year. So there's probably less changed there, I think, than with the with the team with the team relationships.
Yeah. Have you won new business during this time?
Yeah. No, I mean we're. I think it probably hasn't really made a huge difference to our sales. There's been a number of projects that have been put on hold because people are whenever you get this kind of shock event, people can kind of sometimes sort of retrench their positions a bit. So there are a number of things that we were expecting to go ahead with by for the customers to give us the go ahead with by now that they've put them on put them on hold. They're not cancelled. They're just kind of sort of holding pattern, wait and see. But then conversely, there's other stuff that's been pushed forwards as a result of this, as a result of the lockdown. And I mean, in aggregate, I think we're kind of either the same or ahead of where we would be.
Yeah. So do you find a lot of your customers were well prepared? Speaking generally, do you think a lot of them were well prepared, or do you think that's where you've come into the play and your services have helped them prepare, I guess, a bit more?
Yeah, it's an interesting question to ask because we do have quite a wide spectrum of customers, but with the if you like, with the demographics of our customers, that they're either kind of sort of smaller enterprises, with sort of 100 to 500 staff, where they're maybe relatively agile, or else tech focused SMEs. So with the demographics, those sorts of businesses have probably been able to adapt pretty quickly to to people working from home. So and obviously within our customer base, we've seen people execute perfectly, and some people having a bit more of a struggle with it. But I think in terms of the snapshot that we see, that people are generally in a good position.
Yeah. So if you were to sort of give any sort of advice to other business owners out there, what would it be?
That's quite a general question. I'm not quite sure.
Apologies for that, but I guess more in terms of, is there anything that you've found, actually we did that really well, and the reason why we did it really well was because of that we were really prepared, or we were because I think some businesses found it really difficult to plan during this time, and it's been sort of it's happened, but it's happened, like you said, with challenges, big challenges. And I was just interested to know if you've come across things that you think, actually, do you know what, this has really helped us during this time.
So I think it's always easy to look at something with hindsight and sort of say what worked, what didn't. But I don't feel that we've had that time for reflection yet. And we're still really in the middle of it. And certainly for our team, every week that goes by, there's we learn something new about how we need to kind of cope with the current environment. And what I do very much look forward to is whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years time, be able to sort of sit down around a table with colleagues and really kind of reflect and consider on what we've what we've learned from this time. My big probably my big concern is about the relationship equity that we've built up within the team getting eroded, and I think it's very easy for to look at something quite broadly and sort of say, oh well, we've given everyone a laptop, we're kind of and we're working from home, and things seem to be working okay.
Yeah.
But actually, what's happening underneath that is those relationships, they're getting chipped away at, and so that's my really big concern.
Yeah, it's a task, isn't it, just to keep that momentum going and keep like you said, the equity within that sort of relationship and making sure you're covering all the bases. I think that's probably the hard thing, because yes, you're delivering on some aspects, but actually on other aspects, people's either mental well-being or their sort of the need for that interaction isn't there, so they're doing things slightly differently, and it's causing issues in other places that they might not even know themselves that's happening. So I think from a from a business owner and leader's perspective, it's keeping that momentum going through the time. It's a challenge for that personally, for themselves as well as for the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ed, I really appreciate your time today, and I know you're busy, so I do appreciate your views, and good luck with sort of scaling up operations for your clients who obviously need it at this time. And I look forward to having a coffee in a room with you at a point in the future, and we can reflect together on on our businesses and how we overcome this.
Great. Okay. Well, it's good to great to talk to you, and so thanks very much.
No pros at all. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.